Welcome back, everybody, to Beyond the Tour. This is episode 28, and I'm your host, Luke Manning. Our normal co-host, Jake Howe, is not with us today, but we've got a very special guest. We've got Adam Mills, the Superintendent from the Royal Queensland Golf Club. How are you going, Adam?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Been a tough week, but we're hanging in there.
We've had quite a little bit of wet weather here in Brisbane, and quite the challenge for Adam and his team to deal with as we head into the Australian PGA Championships this weekend. So Adam's joined us to discuss the PGA Championships and do a little bit of a preview. But before we dive into that, we'll just do a quick recap of the weekend's results. I know we're recording a little bit later than usual today, but we'll still do our usual recap. Starting with the Tour Championship on the DP World Tour, so the season-ending tournament there where Rory McIlroy was victorious over Rasmus Højgaard, and also good to see Aussie Adam Scott finish in a tie for third there. We had the PGA Tour, the Butterfield Championship over in Bermuda, where Rafael Campos took out the victory there over Andrew Novak and Adrian Dumont-Deschamps. Moving into the ladies on the LPGA Tour, the Annika tournament there, where Nelly Korda was able to edge out Charlie Hull and Wei Zhang in a good finish there on the LPGA Tour. And then finally here at home on the PGA Tour of Australasia, we had the New South Wales Open, where some of our big Aussie names were playing, Cam Smith and Lucas Herbert, the biggest names, and it was Lucas Herbert that was eventually victorious there in a seesawing affair, particularly over Saturday and Sunday. So we'll just dive into, I think, the DP World Tour Championship and also the New South Wales Open in a little bit more detail. In terms of the DP World Tour Championship over in Dubai, the stage was certainly set for a fantastic conclusion to the season, a ripping leaderboard there. And as he always seems to do, Rory McIlroy found his way to the top of the leaderboard, holding the 54-hole lead over Rasmus Højgaard and Anton Rosner. But in close proximity and in fast pursuit, we had Neiman, Hatton, Scott, Bobby McIntyre, all within striking distance, sort of 4 shots less back from the lead going into Sunday. And they were given a little bit of a start early on with Rory making bogey on the opening hole, but he certainly solidified things very quickly with another 4 birdies on the trot to sort of finish the opening 9 at 3 under. Also joined the conversation, and there was a bit of a tussle at the top there between the two. And really it came down to a couple of key iron shots from Rory, particularly on 16, but then again also on 17. Which gave him the lead by 1 going into 18. So Rasmus really needed an eagle on the final hole to be able to make a match of it and take it away from Rory. But he couldn't get his second on the green, and Rory was sort of safely adjacent to the green for 2 and ended up making birdies. So that claimed his 3rd DP World Tour Race to Dubai title in a row, and his 6th overall. So certainly very dominant. Rory is in the Race to Dubai and still on the DP World Tour, despite the fact that he plays the majority of his golf on the PGA Tour. And so now that the season's finished for the DP World Tour, we actually know the final rankings, and we know who have earned their PGA Tour cards. So we've got Rasmus Højgaard, Tristan Lawrence, Paul Waring, Jesper Svensson, Nicholas Norgard, Matteo Manacero, Thorbjorn Olesen, Anton Rosner, Hoshino from Japan, and also Tom McKibben, the 10 that have earned their PGA Tour cards and will be graduating, shall we say, from the DP World Tour over to the PGA Tour. Adam, I'll just ask you a question. It's been a topic of conversation on the pod here how we kind of feel like the PGA Tour, through its strategic alliance with the DP World Tour, has kind of exerted a lot of control, shall we say, and now we've got a situation where the 10 best players on the DP World Tour graduate through to the PGA Tour, and whilst that might be good for those players themselves, it's probably not great for the DP World Tour itself in terms of being sort of a competitive force for the PGA Tour. What's your sort of take on that? Do you have a view about whether the DP World Tour has maybe been weakened by this and sort of relegated itself to a feeder tour, or do you still think that the strategic alliance is sort of valuable?
Yeah, I think it's only going to improve giving opportunities for young guys to come through. Certainly from the DP World Tour side. And it gives those guys the opportunity to reach the PGA, which is probably seen as the top tour. Yeah, it is a difficult one. But the discussion that I've always had is, especially on the P Tour side, is whether the Corn Ferry guys get the opportunity as well. So that second tier.
Yeah, that's right. There's the Corn Ferry Tour guys also wanting to start, and just in the last day or so, we've seen an announcement come out from the PGA Tour that they're shortening the field sizes from 120, 125 down to 100. So again, it just makes it very cluttered at that bottom end of the PGA Tour fields to try and get a start. But your point's well made around giving the young guys an opportunity, and I think that's particularly the case for some of the Aussies who may not get a start on the DP World Tour if the top 10 don't sort of progress through to the PGA Tour. But it's an interesting challenge that the DP World Tour finds itself in. There's plenty of people out there sort of suggesting that maybe they should sever the strategic alliance with the PGA Tour and look to do something with the PIF from Saudi Arabia, who we know is the owner of the Live Golf League. But we'll see how that unfolds. But that's the end of the season there for the DP World Tour. As I said, I'll talk about the New South Wales Open because it was a bit of a topsy-turvy affair between Cam Smith and Lucas Herbert down on the Murray River. So it was interesting to see this tournament shift from its usual spot in February to November. They were able to significantly up the prize money. Ford came on board as a major name sponsor, which is a great development for Australian golf. And it's now become the third biggest tournament in Australia behind the PGA Championships and also the Australian Open. I think the prize pool was about 800K. So certainly a significant improvement on what we've seen previously. And it was Lucas Herbert that was able to claim his first PGA Tour of Australasia title, having won on both the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour of America before winning at home. So he would have been very happy with the win there, having grown up only 2 hours from the course and certainly played it many times as a junior. Smithy looked the goods. He took a 2-shot lead into the final round and certainly looked the guy to beat. And he probably gave the field a real chance late on Saturday with a double bogey on 17 in his third round. And that was, I guess, the opening that Lucas Herbert needed to really sort of come through the pack on Sunday. So Herbert himself also gave up a lot of shots on Saturday. I think he had 2 double bogeys and a bogey in that round, and you could tell that he was filthy with himself. At one stage, throwing his club into one of the bunkers and smashing up some of the sand. So I don't know whether you caught that, Adam, but as a superintendent, I'm sure it would have given you a bit of cause for concern as he was taking to the nicely manicured red sand bunkers down there. But weather was really a factor. The wind got up along the Murray there, and it really created a bit of havoc for the players. So Herbert threw down the gauntlet. He went out in a 3 under 32. and Smith was going in the other direction. In fact, he went 2 over through the first 14 holes. And so this actually gave Herbie a 2-shot lead with 3 to play. Cam had the par 5 16th ahead, where he ended up making birdie after leaving a lengthy eagle putt short. But the last 2 holes were really exposed to the wind. You could see that with Herbert. He had a putt on 17, a birdie putt on 17, where he backed off a number of times before he actually managed to hit the putt. So he clearly wasn't comfortable. And Cam had a birdie putt on 17 himself after having been in the fairway trap off the tee. But a sloppy 3-putt bogey there for Cam gave a 2-shot lead to his Ripper GC teammate. And then Herbie hits his approach shot on 18, relatively tight, makes a rock-solid par. He lipped out for birdie, but was enough, particularly when Smith then went on to bogey 18 as well. So a good tournament for the Aussies. It's great to see some of our big-name players coming back and supporting these regional tour events. We saw Smithy play in the Queensland PGA at Nudgee a few weeks back as well. It's just really good for Australian golf to see them giving back. So kudos to Herbie and Smith for doing that, and well done to Lucas Herbert on the win there. So that brings us to our preview of this week. So as many of you will know, we have the Australian PGA Championships coming up at Royal Queensland Golf Club. I'm very excited about this tournament, having been a newly minted member at RQ. This will be my first time as a member going around, but I have been out the last 2 years to the tournament. It's been a really well-run tournament. We've seen some great winners with Minwoo Lee and Cam Smith, and also Jed Morgan over the last few years. But what I wanted to do was dive into a bit more of the course and also the preparations that go into a PGA championship. And so Adam's been at the forefront of what's been happening out at RQ for the last number of weeks, and who better to talk to? So Adam, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining us on the pod this morning.
No problems. Thanks for having me.
So, mate, let's talk a little bit about the course prep. When does your RQ team start prepping the course for the PGA? And can you maybe talk to us about what's actually involved in preparing a golf course like RQ for tournament conditions?
Yeah, it's I think all year round we run a pretty high level golf course, and we're certainly probably 10 weeks out, we do a light renovation on the greens, and that's when we're really starting to really try and dial in the surfaces and the course as a whole. Through the winter, we'll do a lot of bunker work, flushing drainage and checking depths and ensuring that that's in the best possible condition. It's certainly got my work out over the last 10 days. But yeah, probably that 10 weeks out is when we really start to try and dial it in. We do a light reno, and we start to work on our numbers, green speeds and firmness. But yeah, it's just a case of working through each thing systematically. And as we see sort of the last 2 weeks just before the tournament, with the surfaces really start to come together.
Yeah, and with the light reno, you just sort of scarify the fairways and greens and then do a top dress? Yeah.
So we're doing it's all about just reducing a little bit of thatch. Our greens are always pretty good. We're aiming for 3% organic matter. This year we were only sort of 4.5 when we did that renovation, which is pretty low anyway. Our renovations on our fairways, we don't want to go again too high because we want to ensure that we get the surfaces back. So we've got a couple of areas that we go a little bit harder on. And yeah, it's just trying to reduce that little bit of grain, which sort of catches people who play on the cooler season grasses by surprise. And yeah, I'm really happy with the surfaces at the moment, even though we've had 198 mil of rain in 10 days. If it stops raining, they'll come and go nicely.
Yeah, so maybe let's talk a little bit about the wild weather we've had here in Brisbane over the last week or so. We've had some vicious thunderstorms rip through. I saw some social media posts of the challenges that you had out there at RQ over the weekend with the amount of water that came through the course. Maybe just explain some of the unexpected work that's materialised and what you've had to do in the last few days.
Yeah, Saturday we were always hoping we get less. We were probably expecting maybe 20 mil. We ended up with 90. And the way sort of the course is designed and our bunkers are designed, they got pretty high faces and that we can get sand slips on them and the faces collapse. So the team I've got, which consists of my 20 and another 19 volunteers, worked very, very hard on Sunday morning to get it back up, and they did a great job. The rain we've had over the last last 2 days or the last night, was 36 mil, and they seem to be holding pretty strong. There's a bit of water around, but they've done a great job. So we've had multiple storms earlier last week with an inch night in quick downpours, and that's also not very good. So yeah, there's a lot of redoing things, which isn't ideal, but we keep turning up, so that's good.
Yeah, so we're recording early Wednesday morning. There's a Pro-Am underway at the moment on course. You mentioned before we started recording, a few of the bunkers are staked at the moment, but so far as tournament conditions kicking off tomorrow morning, I think at 6 a.m. or thereabouts, you expect every bunker to be in play and the course to be fully operational?
Yeah, my team were in this morning at 3. I just knocked them off. They'll come back this afternoon and they'll do quite a bit of work, removing more water out of some of the bunkers that tend to hold it a little bit. The key to Royal Queensland is our drainage system and the pumps we've got to get the water off the course, because we're surrounded by creeks. And as I said, if the rain stops even for us, I'm pretty confident we'll get a lot of that surface water away, and yeah, we should have everything up and running. But as you mentioned, Mother Nature's a great equaler. If it keeps raining, we'll be working hard. I'm always hopeful that it stops.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed the rain clears. You talked about the 20 staff that are in your regular crew there, but you've got 19 volunteers. I did see some stuff that you might have had some help from Bustleton Golf Course. And where do your sort of volunteers come from? Are they all around the country, and how do they sort of get involved?
Yeah, well, I mean, they are all around the country. I put out, that's probably one of the first things I do in tournaments actually is in June, I send out applications of interest for volunteers with the ASTMA, which is our National Sports Turf Managers Association. And yeah, our industry is really good in that way that tournament experience on your resume is really, really well regarded. So a great way to upskill people's staff is to send them to tournaments to volunteer and work. So we get quite a good amount of support around the country from supers sending their younger staff to get some tournament experience. And yes, we got a young man from Bustleton. Got a 2IC from the Grange in Adelaide. Another greenkeeper from Medway in Melbourne. One from Magenta Shores in Sydney, and then a really good host of young kids from around Brisbane. And machinery to match. So, we get a lot of help from clubs around Brisbane to up our numbers of machinery. We double our fairway units as we've got quite a lot area of fairway. And we cut everything, tees, fairways, aprons, greens, do the bunkers. We do that every morning.
Yeah, I saw a great piece of footage, almost Augusta style, with the Toro reels mowers, all sort of cutting in coordination. It was great to see. Now, when does the PGA team sort of take over the course, so to speak? And like, who's in charge at that point, and what do they still require from the RQ team?
The PGA take over from Sunday. The course is theirs, but they're here from about also 10 weeks out, 8 weeks out, sorry. There's quite a lot of infrastructure that has to come in, grandstands and things like that. So they've got multiple teams in different areas. And as the course and the preparation builds, different teams come in. But the championship directors and that, they were here from Saturday. We do follow a document that we've been given on what they require. And yeah, our course meets that most of the time anyway. So just around some instructions around green speeds and things like that.
Yeah. So what are some of those instructions that they give you in the document? I saw that the greens are running at sort of 11 plus at the moment, but what are some of the specifics they look for in terms of course setup for the PGA?
They give you general cutting heights that they like, and we run those heights all year round, which is sort of around the 3 millimetre mark on greens. We cut our tees and aprons at 6 mil. And we cut our fairways at the moment at 9. The green speeds, they like 11 and a half. Over the years, they've grown comfortable with us being quicker. Sort of by the end of last year, we had them around the 12-foot mark, which is a really nice pace on the Cooch greens. We don't get them much quicker than that.
Yeah,
but it's not around.
You talked before about the grain, and obviously in Queensland, a lot of our golf courses are utilising Cooch grasses of various persuasions, and that can be quite a grainy grass, particularly compared to what people might get when they're playing in sandbelt courses. Is there some guidance around the graininess, and does the quicker green speed sort of help alleviate some of that?
We do a lot of work all year round with light verticutting and dusting to try and reduce the grain bias. It's our greens at the moment, and it might catch out some people who are used to bent, is looking for breaks that aren't going to be there. It can be a grainy grass if you don't do the work, but we do that all year round. So I'm really happy with the green surfaces, even with the amount of rain we've had. We're getting averaging speeds of 11.8 today, which is pretty amazing considering the rain we've had. Firmness will be down, but these guys hit the ball so far and so high at the moment. Well, now. Sort of they can put it where they want.
Yeah, and look, I can certainly attest to the course being in magnificent shape at the moment. Really looking forward to seeing how it plays. It is a little disappointing it won't be as firm as what some of us might like to see, because that is certainly one of the true tests of RQ, and we'll get to that in a second. But in terms of actual course conditioning, what rates up there is the best year for you that RQ's hosted, where the course has just been exactly how you've wanted it?
No, I don't think. I think we've improved every year. Last year we were in a really good spot and then got 70 mil the Tuesday before, which softened them. So that was a little bit of a shame in my eyes. But again, the tournament directors have said the same thing to me, as they stopped trying to beat the pros. years ago because they just hit the ball so far and so high now. But yeah, the greens just being a little bit receptive makes it a little bit easier for them. Obviously, the game's not that easy, but these guys are very, very good.
Yeah.
This year, I'm still hoping if the rain goes away, we'll probably be at that level. But they are going to be a little bit receptive, which may mean they'll score a bit better.
Okay, so that's good sort of discussion around the prep and what goes into getting the course ready. Let's talk a little bit about the course itself. So the course originally designed by Carnegie Clark opened back in 1920. And then we had a redesign at RQ by Mike Clayton in 2007. So very different styles between the two sort of courses, or the original course and Clayton's redo. What sort of some of the key differences that you might call out from what Clayton did versus the original course?
I think it's completely different. But Clayton's done a really good job of creating a little bit of movement visually, I think, on what would be a very flat parcel of land. His philosophy is big, wide fairways, but you need to plot your way around the course. Yeah, just hitting the ball long might not suit certain pin positions. So there's a real thought process around the way he expects the course to be managed as far as playing wise, which I think is really interesting. And I know I get out there occasionally and I sort of don't know, I can't put the ball where I want it every time, but you certainly get yourself into some sticky situations if you are in the wrong spot. And especially probably the last four holes, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 are holes that stay at you and waiting for you to make a mistake, and it can cost you pretty dearly. So, and we've seen that over the years, over the last 4 years.
Yeah, and I think the course is one that can lure you into a false sense of security because, as you say, off the tee it is fairly generous, or it looks to be generous. But depending on where the pin positions are, the landing areas or the ideal spots in the fairway aren't as big as they certainly look off the tee. And then the course really asks you the questions with your second and third shot, particularly if you don't hit the green with your second shot. The green complexes are a standout feature for me, collection areas, etc. So what sort of what are some of the I guess key characteristics in your mind that sort of make RQ a great course?
Yeah, I think it's sort of its own hybrid golf course, isn't it? There's not really like any other. Things that sort of come to mind is certainly around our greens and how tight our aprons are, chipping, using the old lob wedges sort of advised against, even though some of these players who are here this week have probably got the ability. But it'll get some guys in some sticky situations. The bunkering's quite tight to the greens, which is, and as you mentioned before, if wind comes into play, there's going to be also some guys getting in trouble around our bunkerings. Our canoe-shaped bunkers also might not give you the best lie. They'll be in pretty good condition, and the guys are working hard. But they're quite narrow and don't always give you the optimum shot. So that can be really challenging.
Yeah, I think two things really stand out for me there. Chipping into the grain can really bring you unstuck, and often because we've got the elevated green complexes, you do need to try and chip with somewhat of a lofted shot in order to actually be able to hold the green the other side because of the narrowness of the green if you've got the wrong angle. So chipping into the green with lofted clubs is certainly a trap for young players. And as you say, the narrowness of some of the bunkers, you can get these downhill lies, getting up and down from those downhill lies is virtually impossible. I think about the back bunkers on 12, and even the back bunkers on 18. If you get into those, you hit long with your approach shot there, you've really got a devilish up and down. It's going to be very hard to save par from those types of situations. I guess there'll be a lot of focus on the 17th, given that it's the party hole, and the TV coverage will probably be showing a lot of the 17th. I actually think the 17th is a great hole, but I wanted to get your sort of ideas on what's your favourite hole and why.
I always say 8, the 8. I like the look of it. It's 100 and, well, for me, I think even this week, it's 180 metres off the plate, and there's a semi-dry crib bed across the middle of it on an angle, and and it's pretty heavily bunkered. So I really like that hole. Whether I play it well or not is another thing, but for me, visually, I really like the look of it. I like the look of 3 from the back tees with the waist that sort of jumps up at you. And I think actually all our par 3s are quite strong, both visually and playability wise.
Yeah, I think you picked out a couple of great holes there. Third is a fantastic hole off the back pegs there. It is really a challenging par 4. I guess depending on what the wind condition is, the players might get some help if it's sort of a prevailing northeasterly off the left there. But into the wind, that hole's an absolute beast. The 8th, if there's any wind around, it's almost impossible to hit that green for an amateur. The pros are obviously not so, but it's a long, hard par 3. Probably lucky that they're playing not the very back tees there, because I think they've taken that for the 15th tee box to provide a bit more of a different shot off the tee on 15. But great holes there. I think the other hole that's definitely worth calling out is 12. The margin between birdie and double bogey on 12 is razor thin. It's a drivable par 4. It's a masterpiece in terms of design. So they'll get there with 3 woods. They won't need driver to be able to get there. You've got some danger on the right-hand side there with water, and also on the left-hand side with trees that can block you out for your second, and then some fairway traps that are strategically placed as well for those sort of taking a centre line. So you really need to go up the left-hand channel to be able to hit the green. But if you don't hit the green, you've then got a really devilish second shot, which requires absolute precision. Because the green's just got such a huge ridge that runs through sort of the middle and off to the right of it. So I'll really be looking forward to seeing that hole and how that plays out, because it's just such as I say, a razor-thin margin between triumph and tragedy.
Yeah, I think Adam Scott hit 3 wood and hit that back pin. The ball came around and it ricocheted off the back, and then I think Moronk did the same thing last year. So it's a hole where you have to be incredibly accurate. But I have seen also some just hit iron down to the right and look at it from a different angle. So again, that's what that course is about, is plot your way around the course, what works best for you.
Where do you think the players will be able to attack most within the course?
I think you've got to start well here. 1 and 2 are certainly birdie opportunities, and try and settle yourself early in the round on those first holes, especially when you get to the weekend. But if the wind comes up, those back holes that I mentioned before, the last sort of 4 or 5, are going to be the testers, especially our prevailing is a sou'easter. So coming into 15, into 16, we saw a little bit of trouble with that too, even with 11. I think in the second year with Cam Smith going over the back. So, and there's trouble, as I said, there's trouble all around the course, and it'll stay at you. One little mistake can cost you a couple of shots, which can be devastating to your result.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that sort of final stretch. Like 14's a very tough par 4, and you're sort of more of the traditional original course in terms of tree lined, but it's a very tough par 4. And then those coming holes, par 5, par 4, par 3, par 4, particularly, 17, it's probably a little bit easier with the grandstands around, to be honest. If the grandstands weren't there, it certainly makes it a lot harder because you're pretty much dead if you're long, as opposed to sort of going into a drop zone. But it can be a difficult par 3, particularly if the wind is up. But for these guys, it's probably not much more than a gap wedge. And then coming home, 18, depending on where the pin there is, the green's really strategically placed in terms of its angle and its direction. And so you've got to be in the right spot off the tee for where the pin is going to be on that particular day. So, Adam, we saw Jed Morgan, RQ member, run away with the tournament a few years back. He really tore it up, and obviously local knowledge played a large piece of that, along with sort of catching a real heater at the time. How do you expect the course to sort of play this year? You think it's going to be easy? Is it going to be hard? Somewhere in the middle? And do you have a view on what the winning score might look like?
Yeah, it's hard to say. At the moment, with the conditions, it'll probably play a little bit easier, but I still expect, as we said, that they'll get to position on the fairways. It's getting on the greens. The putting for some guys, it seems to be that they overread, whether they're looking for grain or things like that. Minwoo last year was pretty aggressive with his putts, and he was sort of going straight at the hole, which is if you got that putter running and he can do that, that saw him win the tournament. I think, him winning him shooting 5 under nearly every day should win you a tournament. Generally, this place, it'll show its teeth with some wind one day, and that'll put pressure on. But I think anything around the 20 under for me, I'm still happy with, given the amount of rain we've had.
I'm hoping that we've got a bit of wind, just to sort of level it out a bit. With the amount of rain that we've had, the greens inevitably are going to be more receptive than they otherwise would have been. So wind's certainly the great leveler, and it'd be great to see that sort of get up and create some challenges. It really does make it difficult, particularly as you go along the river stretch of holes, and even coming back in. We talked about 15, 16. If you're hitting into the wind they're difficult holes. So let's hope for that and give these guys a real test. We'll just sort of move on to some of the main players and the main chances now. So Jason Day is somewhat, in my eyes, somewhat of a surprising favourite. I think he was $8.50 last time I looked at the betting ads. Of course, I expect him to play well and sort of be up there, but it's our first look at Jason in Australia for a long time. His results this year on tour over in America have been on the improve. And he posted some social media content of his practice round on Monday. Was there, were there many followers out there having a look at him during the practice rounds?
No, we had the course closed to any spectators over the last couple of days. So, and given yesterday it was raining all day, so no, he's one of my favourites. Certainly was a player. Not sure about the betting market or anything like that. So, I'd love to see him certainly playing in the last couple of days for sure, as I would with all of them. I think it's great for golf if that happens. But yeah, I'm certainly a fan of Jason, and I hope he plays well.
I think it would be good for Australian golf if Jason does really well, and hopefully that encourages him and motivates him to be able to come back a little more often than we've seen. I saw some recent stuff where he, I think, had done some interviews with the PGA of Australia just to explain why he hadn't been back. He talked about his back injury and that being a real impediment to him taking the 20-hour flight from Ohio back to Australia in the initial stages, and then sort of in more recent years with his mum battling cancer and sort of passing away, having treatment over there in the States. There wasn't really a desire to sort of get back whilst he had those personal matters that he was dealing with. But nonetheless, he's back in Australia, playing in Queensland, his home state. So he'll certainly be one of the crowd favourites, I would think, and it would be great to see him go well. Next on the list is Minwoo Lee, so last year's champion. He's at $10, and who could forget the eagle chip in on 9 from Dr. Chipinski last year? Were you on course at this stage?
I was actually right there, but I wasn't watching, unfortunately.
You would have heard the roar, though.
I was standing. Yeah. Everybody was just behind me. I was looking in the other direction for some reason, which is unlucky. But I remember also the year before, Minwoo, I was out in the rough on 12, the hole we were talking about before, and he was behind the trees. He'd hit three-water driver to behind the trees.
On the left.
And, on the left, which is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And he chipped it through a fork in the tree, landed it just on the edge of the apron, which, as you know, the apron goes up about 2.5 meters. And then if you go another 6 meters, you're down into that hollow, but he pulled it up within 3 feet of the pin. It was an unbelievable shot. And I was witness to that, which was enough for me.
Yeah.
I know he's an incredible player. So it didn't surprise me last year to see him go. And it was really good to see his emotion come out, because he comes across quite serious, even though he's a lovely young man. But it was really good to see him pumped up, and as it would be, it was pretty good time.
Yeah, that's a shot that us mere mortals don't have, and certainly I've been over left of those trees on 12 many a time, and as you say, you're dead unless you've got some miracle shot in you like that. So yeah, he's certainly a guy that can get hot. He loves a heater, as he would say. He loves to cook. The chef's form this year since earning his PGA Tour card's been, I think, underwhelming from his standards and what we know he's capable of. So it'll be a good test for him this week to see if he can back up. I'm sure he'll be, just itching to defend his title, and hopefully we see a whole heap of exciting play from the chef. That brings us now to Smithy at $12. We've seen Smithy in the last couple of weeks. As I mentioned, he played the Queensland PGA, also the New South Wales Open. He had his chances to win both of those tournaments. Probably should have won, but came up short. His live season, I would say, was mixed. He had really good success in the teams event with Ripper GC, including winning at home here in Adelaide back in April. In front of huge crowds down at the Grange. But he didn't really get going in the individual stakes, and driving has been his Achilles heel. So I would say, though, that RQ should set up nicely for him. We talked about the generosity off the tee. And then I think it's a course that should allow his short game to come to the fore. And you'd have to say he's probably got the top, 3 or 4 short games in the world. So any thoughts on Smithy and whether he's still got his edge?
I think I 100% agree. I think this place sets up, RQ sets up for him brilliantly. And again, if anybody's got the short game around our short aprons, it's him. Again, I remember the year he won it, he hit driver on 15 and then driver to the left of the green, pin up on the top tier from the direction he was coming from, and he knocked it to 3 feet. Nobody could do that with a little lob wedge. It was phenomenal. So, yeah, I think he's always got to be a show, doesn't he? Well, even though probably Stu wasn't his best, but I think, this year he's got a couple of games under his belt, trying to get himself dialed in. So, I'd expect him to be up there.
He's going to be a huge hometown favourite, the Brisbane boy. So, him and Jason will certainly be the local faves. You did mention Smithy, obviously last year he missed the cut. Where did he sort of go wrong last year, and what's he sort of need to fix this year?
Being a professional sportsman, you can't be on all the time, even though you probably expected to, or maybe just needed a rest. I actually, he is a member here, even though he's from one teamer, but I saw him up here practicing the other day. And he played the Queensland Open and he played the New South Wales Open, whereas last year he sort of just came straight in, off a little bit of a holiday. So, I think he's, it was probably more about just him wanting a bit of a break and after a big year on the Live Tour. So, maybe he's building towards something.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there. I mean, you can't always be on as a professional sportsman. And I do remember when he missed the cut last year, there was lots of concern, what's going on with Smithy? But I mean, sometimes you just have bad weeks, don't you? And I think everybody's entitled to a little bit of a down period. So it'd be great to see Smithy bounce back and really perform at his best. I mean, it would be awesome to see him and J-Day just sort of duking it out down the stretch on Sunday. But let's see how we go. Lucas Herbert, last week's winner of the New South Wales Open, he's at $15. Similar to Minwoo, he can get quite streaky and can get on heaters. And I'm sure he'd love to go back to back and claim his second win on Australian soil. Certainly, I think he's someone that is capable of winning it, having, as I mentioned before, won on the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour. So Herbie will be someone to keep an eye on. There are a bunch of DP World Tour players that are out here. I won't go through them all, but the best of them in terms of the betting markets, you've got Jordan Smith at $13, Victor Perez at $15, and then a name that most people probably aren't familiar with, but someone that's performed very well on the DP World Tour is Yannick Paul, so a bit of a smoky at $36. Adam, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Have you got a pick for outright winner?
I've got a couple of staff members who happen to be playing this week. So if I was going to have a bet, I'd throw my support behind them. But listen, I think I'm a huge fan of Jason, but I think Smithy could do it again.
Yep. And that probably answers the next question. Then I was going to say who finishes higher, a live player or a PGA Tour player? So you've picked a live player there. And then just a bit of fun here, mate. Top veteran. So you got a choice between Pampling, Sendon, two Queensland boys who've probably played RQ many times. Peter Lonard or Jeff Ogilvy. Who are you taking for top Aussie veteran?
I was watching John Senden. Saw him both days in his practice round, actually, and I just love his swing. I just think he hits the ball easier than anyone. So I'll go with him, but Jeff's part of our architecture team at RQ, so
got a soft spot
I better get some support around him.
And also a great swing as well. Quite similar swings, just very rhythmic, and it's all about timing for those two boys, isn't it?
Relaxed.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, look, that probably pulls us up in terms of the PGA Championship preview at RQ this week.
Thanks for having me. That was good.